The sky was dark and full of smoke. The ground was broken, metal pieces and fire everywhere. The war had ended, but the planet was quiet in a scary way. Ethan, a young human soldier, walked alone, holding his injured arm. His ship had crashed. His team was gone, and his food was almost finished. He had only one thing left, a small chocolate bar. It was old, melted a little, but still sweet. He looked at it and smiled, remembering Earth. He thought about his sister who used to steal his chocolate when they were kids. Now he was far from home, on a ruined alien planet, surrounded by silence. Suddenly, he heard a sound. Behind the broken wall, he turned fast, ready to fight. But there was no danger. A girl stood there, half covered in ash and dirt. She looked young, maybe 15 or 16 in human years. Her clothes were torn, and her eyes were wide like she hadn't eaten in days. She didn't say a word, just stared at him. Ethan didn't move, unsure what to do. Was she a survivor? Was she dangerous? But she looked too weak, too small to be a threat. After a long silence, he reached into his pocket and slowly took out the chocolate bar. She looked at it like it was treasure. He broke it in half and offered her one piece. The girl didn't move, but her eyes locked on the chocolate. Ethan smiled and held it closer to her. "It's okay," he said gently. "Take it." She stepped forward slowly and took the piece. Her hands were shaking. She sniffed the chocolate like she didn't know what it was. Then she took a bite, and something strange happened. Her eyes flashed just for a second, a soft blue light. Ethan blinked, thinking maybe it was just his tired eyes. But then the girl's body relaxed and she sat down near him, still eating quietly. He watched her carefully, confused but curious. "Where are you from?" he asked, but she didn't answer. She just looked at him, face calm, lips closed. Maybe she didn't understand him, or maybe she couldn't talk. Either way, she seemed peaceful. Ethan sat too, leaning against the wall. They shared silence, the kind that felt strange but not bad. He gave her the other half of the chocolate. He was hungry too, but she needed it more. Somehow, he felt it was the right thing to do. As the night came, the air got cold. Ethan tried to start a small fire, using broken wires and a spark from his damaged gear. The girl watched him, her eyes following every move. He finally made a weak fire, and they sat close to it. "I don't know if you can understand me," Ethan said, "but I'm Ethan." He pointed to himself. "Ethan." Then he pointed at her, hoping she'd respond. She looked at his finger, then at him, but said nothing. "Okay," he smiled again. "Silent type, huh?" Hours passed, and the fire burned low. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, just to rest. But when he opened them, the girl was gone. He jumped up, heart racing. Had she left? Was it a trap? Then he saw her just a few steps away, kneeling near a dead machine. It was a broken scout drone, military tech, totally useless now. But the girl placed her hand on it, her eyes glowing faint blue again. The drone sparked, its light flickered, and it moved slightly. Ethan's mouth fell open in shock. "How?" he whispered, but she didn't look at him. She stood up and walked back to the fire like nothing happened. Ethan stared at the drone. It was still dead, but something had changed. This girl, she wasn't normal. Who was she? Why didn't she speak? And how did she touch tech like that? Ethan didn't have answers, but deep inside, he knew this was the beginning of something big. This girl was more than just a poor alien child. He had shared his last chocolate bar without thinking, but now he realized she might not be what she looked like. Not at all. The next morning, Ethan opened his eyes to see her sitting across from him, staring quietly like before. Her face was calm, but there was something behind her silence, something unreadable. She didn't move when he stood up, didn't flinch when he stretched his arms or checked his gear. It was like she had no fear at all. The wind blew dust over the ruins, and smoke from distant fires still floated in the air. Everything was broken, dead, or abandoned, except for her. Ethan found a small scanner in his bag, its screen cracked but still blinking. He tried to power it, hoping to find a signal, but It flickered and died in seconds. The girl walked over, reached out slowly, and touched the side of the scanner. It beeped, lit up for a moment, and then shut off again. Ethan stepped back, eyes wide. He didn't say anything, but his mind was racing. Was she doing it on purpose? Or was it just something around her? They moved through the ruins together. Ethan was searching for supplies, maybe shelter, maybe other survivors. She followed without question, always a few steps behind. She never spoke, never asked for anything. But her eyes, they noticed everything. She studied the broken ships, the damaged panels, the twisted metal, and sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, she touched them. One time, he saw a dead console spark under her fingers. It didn't fully power up, but something happened inside it. He could feel it. The tech responded to her, not like a tool, but like a living thing. He didn't understand how, and she wasn't telling him, because she still didn't speak. Later that day, they found an old bunker door, half covered in rocks. Ethan tried to open it with a crowbar, but it wouldn't move. He was about to give up when the girl stepped forward. She placed her hand on the control panel, eyes glowing softly again. The door hissed, unlocked, and slid open slowly. Ethan stared at her, confused and amazed. He wanted to ask so many things, how she did that, who she was, what she wanted, but he didn't even know if she could hear him. Inside the bunker, the air was cold but safe. There were broken lights, shattered crates, and dust everywhere. They found an old med kit and 2 bottles of water, still sealed. Ethan smiled for the first time in days. They sat by the wall, drinking. Slowly, the silence between them was not empty anymore. It was full of mystery. He tried to ask again, pointing to her chest. "What's your name?" She looked at his finger, tilted her head slightly, but didn't reply. He sighed. "Do you even understand me?" Still nothing. But as he closed his eyes to rest, the screen on the wall across from them blinked. It showed strange symbols, alien writing he didn't understand. He hadn't touched anything, neither had she. Or maybe she had when he wasn't looking. Ethan stood up and stared at the symbols. One of them began to change, slowly forming a human word. It said, "Thank you." He turned toward her, and she was watching him, her face still quiet. But there was a small movement at the corner of her lips, almost like a smile. His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from something stranger. What had he gotten into? Who was this girl who didn't speak, but controlled dead machines? Why did everything around her come to life? He remembered the moment he gave her the chocolate, that tiny act of kindness, so small, so simple. But maybe that was the key. Maybe it woke something up in her, something ancient, powerful, or hidden. Ethan didn't sleep much that night. The shadows in the bunker felt too alive, and though the girl sat quietly in the corner, he knew deep down that silence wasn't emptiness. It was waiting. Something was coming, and she was at the center of it all. The sun was hidden behind thick clouds, making the sky look like a blanket of ash. Ethan stood at the bunker's doorway, staring out at the ruined city. His thoughts were heavy, his mind full of questions. Behind him, the girl sat near the wall, her fingers moving gently over a broken comms device. She looked peaceful. But there was something in the air around her, something not normal. He had seen it now too many times to doubt it. Every time she touched something old or dead, it woke up for a second, not fully, not enough to work like before, but just enough to breathe. It was like the machines listened to her, like they remembered something when she was near. Ethan picked up a damaged drone core from the pile of junk in the corner. "Can you fix this?" he asked, not expecting an answer, but she stood, walked over, and knelt beside him. Without a word, she placed both hands on the device. The lights flickered, soft and blue, like her eyes had that first night. Wires inside sparked. The tiny fan spun for 2 seconds. Then the core beeped once and died again. He stared at her, not sure what to say. She sat back, not proud, not scared, just silent. Ethan whispered to himself, "Who are you?" She tilted her head slightly, as if thinking, then reached for his datapad. He handed it to her, curious. She tapped slowly, carefully, like it was her first time, but her fingers moved with purpose. Strange symbols appeared on the screen once. Ethan didn't recognize. Then the symbols shifted, changed, twisted, and became English. "I remember lights," the message said. Then another line appeared, and singing machines. Ethan felt a chill down his back. She wasn't just fixing things. She was remembering through them. Her memories were inside broken wires and lost signals. He asked gently, "Do you know your name?" She looked at him for a long time, then typed again. "Not yet," the screen said, "but I remember the stars." Ethan leaned back, unsure if he was dreaming. Maybe the crash did something to his brain, but the girl was real, the glow in her. Hands was real, and now she was using his language, not by voice, but through machines. He didn't press her for more. Instead, they left the bunker and searched the nearby sector. Ethan found an old scout base, mostly destroyed, but the mainframe inside still had power barely. He tapped the screen, trying to wake the system. It blinked but froze, locked behind an alien encryption wall. Before he could try a code, the girl stepped forward and placed her palm on the metal. The room hummed, the floor vibrated, and the screen lit up fully. The logs unlocked themselves. Data spilling across the display, old battle records, secret messages, maps, troop locations, all exposed. Ethan couldn't believe it. This wasn't just luck anymore. She was part of something. Something deep inside the network. Suddenly, a soft voice came through the speaker. But it wasn't hers. It was a system message translated automatically. Connection to Royal Node. Established. Ethan's eyes widened. Royal. He looked at the girl, but she didn't look surprised. In fact, her face seemed calmer than ever. Before he could ask, the screen showed a face old and tired, with golden markings. It was a hologram. Recording, the voice said, "To the one who awakens, you are the last key." Ethan stepped back, his heart racing. The last key? What did that even mean? He turned to the girl, but her eyes were closed now. She stood still, hands glowing softly, like she was listening to something far away. Then the lights went out. The system died again. She opened her eyes and looked at Ethan. He expected fear or confusion, but she looked almost sad. She typed on the datapad again. "They were looking for me," it said. "They thought I was lost," Ethan whispered. "Who were they?" She answered with just one word, "Family." The silence that followed felt heavy. Not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. Ethan now knew the truth was bigger than he imagined. He didn't just share his chocolate with a poor alien girl. He had stepped into the past of someone powerful. And whoever she really was, others were searching for her. Maybe to protect, maybe to destroy. Either way, he was in too deep to turn back now. The air changed before he even saw them. Ethan felt it first. A strange pressure like a storm was near. The girl stood beside him, still and calm, her eyes scanning the horizon. She didn't speak, didn't run, but he could see it. She knew. They were coming. Dark shapes moved through the dust, silent and fast. At first, Ethan thought it was scavengers. Maybe broken warbots still running old code, but when they stepped into the open, he saw them clearly: soldiers, alien soldiers in black armor, marked with sharp gold symbols. And they weren't here by accident. He grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her behind a broken pillar. His heart pounded as he whispered, "We need to hide." But she didn't move. She looked out at the soldiers and then stepped forward, slowly, carefully. Ethan froze, confused and afraid. Was she crazy? Did she want to be caught? "Stop," he hissed. "They'll kill you." But she kept walking. The soldiers raised their weapons, but they didn't shoot. Instead, they paused, eyes wide behind their helmets. One by one, they lowered their guns and knelt. Ethan blinked, unsure if he was seeing it right. All 5 soldiers dropped to one knee in front of the girl. The one in the lead placed his weapon on the ground and removed his helmet. He had deep blue skin and silver eyes that didn't blink. He spoke in a voice that echoed in the still air. "High One," he said. "You live." The girl didn't reply, not with words. She simply raised her hand. And the soldier touched his head to the ground. Ethan stepped out slowly, completely lost. What is happening? He whispered, more to himself than anyone else. One of the other soldiers turned to him. You are the human who found her. The soldier said, you protected the last voice. The what? Ethan asked. The soldier looked at him like he was a child. She who speaks and the machines obey. She who carries the blood of command. Then he added, she is royalty. Ethan stared at the girl, who now looked so calm it was almost unreal. A poor alien girl, silent and lost, had just become the center of everything. And now soldiers bowed to her like she was a queen. She turned to Ethan and reached for the datapad again. Her message was short. They found me too soon. Are they going to take you? Ethan asked, his voice low. She typed again. Some serve me, it said, but others want me gone. Before Ethan could ask more, one of the soldiers stepped forward quickly. We must leave, he said. The general has sent hunters. Hunters? Ethan repeated. They are not like us, the soldier said. They do not kneel. The girl walked to Ethan's side, her eyes serious now. The soft glow in them had returned, but brighter than before. The air around her almost hummed like energy was building inside her. Ethan nodded. All right, he said. Then we run together. But the girl shook her head and typed one more line. They will chase you if you stay. Ethan looked at her, then at the soldiers, then back at her. He clenched his jaw and whispered. Too late for that. In the distance, the sound of engines roared loud, fast, angry. A dark ship flew low over the ruins, then another. The hunters had arrived. Ethan pulled the girl close and ran, the soldiers surrounding them in a tight circle. They moved through the rubble fast, heading toward an underground tunnel. Blasts hit the ground nearby, shaking the earth and throwing dust into the air. The soldiers returned fire, but it was clear they were outmatched. One soldier fell, then another. Ethan didn't look back. He just kept moving, holding her hand tightly. They finally reached the tunnel door. Ethan slammed his hand on the panel, but it didn't open. He turned to the girl, but she was already ahead of him. She touched the wall, and it opened like magic. They ran inside as more blasts echoed behind them. The door shut, locking with a loud thud. Darkness surrounded them, broken only by the soft blue light in her eyes. Ethan leaned against the wall, breathing hard. What now? He asked. She typed one word, fight, and for the first time, Ethan saw it clearly, not fear in her eyes, but fire. The tunnel was deep and quiet, the kind of quiet that made your skin feel cold. Ethan held the torch in one hand, lighting their path with a flickering orange glow. The girl walked ahead without fear, like she had been there before. Dust floated in the air, and old cables hung from the ceiling like vines. Every step echoed behind them, reminding Ethan they were still being chased. He wanted to ask her more, to understand what was happening, but something in her face had changed. She wasn't the quiet, lost girl anymore. She was calm, focused, almost royal. She moved like someone who remembered everything now. Finally, the tunnel opened into a large chamber. Old lights flickered to life on their own as they entered. Screens lit up across the walls, showing alien symbols and maps. Ethan looked around in shock. This is a command center, he whispered. The girl stepped forward, her hand glowing softly. She touched the main control panel, and everything around them began to respond. The machines came to life like they were waking from a long dream. Ethan stared at her as the screens began showing images of planets, fleets, and a symbol he didn't recognize. He spoke slowly. You're not just anyone, are you? She didn't type this time. Instead, she placed her hand on a round device in the center of the room. A hologram appeared above it, an image of her, dressed in golden armor, standing beside tall alien leaders. Then came a voice, calm and deep, echoing through the room. Zara of House Viren, born of the High Line, bearer of the machine voice. Ethan's mouth went dry. "Your name is Zara," he whispered. She turned and nodded once. The voice continued. "In time of great danger, the voice shall sleep, hidden from the enemy, hidden even from itself." The message faded, and silence returned. Zara looked at Ethan and finally typed. "They erased my memory to keep me safe." Ethan's chest tightened. "You were in hiding," he said, "pretending to be poor, pretending to be no one." She nodded again. "They thought if I forgot who I was, they couldn't use me." Ethan looked around the room, now glowing with power and light. "You're not just royalty," he said. "You're a weapon." She typed again. "A voice that commands machines. Ships, drones, cities, all obey." Ethan sat down slowly, trying to breathe. Everything was spinning in his head. A chocolate bar, a silent girl, a glowing hand, and now this. Zara watched him, her face unreadable. Then she typed again. "You were kind to me when I was no one. No crown, no name. You gave your last food. You stayed." Ethan looked at her, unsure what to say. "I didn't do it for power," he said. "I just saw someone hungry." She tilted her head slightly. "Others saw a tool," she typed. "You saw a person." Before he could reply, alarms flashed across the screens. The tunnel was breached. Red lights blinking fast. The hunters had found them. Zara stepped to the panel and moved her hands across the screen. Gates locked, traps activated, and defense drones powered up across the corridor. Ethan watched as the room transformed into a fortress. "You're going to fight them," he said. She typed back. "I must. If they take me, the war begins." Again, Ethan stood beside her, holding his weapon. "You're not doing this alone," he said. Zara looked at him for a moment, then typed one more thing. "You are part of this now." The door shook behind them, loud crashes echoing through the walls. Zara raised her hand, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. The machines around her hummed like they were waiting for her voice, and then, for the first time, she spoke aloud. Just one word: "Awaken." The entire room lit up, weapons activated, systems roared to life. The princes had returned, and the war was about to begin again. Asterisk, the walls shook with every hit. Dust fell from the ceiling like falling stars. Zara stood in the center of the command chamber, her hand still raised, her eyes glowing like twin moons. Ethan stood beside her, gripping his rifle, his heart pounding. Like a war drum, the machines around them came to life, not like old tech waking up, but like beasts ready for battle. Turrets unfolded from the walls, drones lifted from hidden crates, and the air buzzed with energy. Zara spoke again, one word at a time, soft but full of command. "Defend, protect, hold." The chamber obeyed without hesitation, and somewhere in the tunnel, the hunters met the first line of defense. Blasts rang out, metal against metal, screams echoing through the darkness. But the sound did not reach Zara's face. She was calm, focused. Like a queen born in war, Ethan stepped closer. "We can't hold them forever," he said. "There are too many." Zara nodded, then pointed to a large device behind the control panel. A glowing core pulsed inside, protected by shields and locks. Ethan had seen it before, in training files. "Is that a pulse core?" he asked. Zara typed fast. "Not just a pulse core. It is the voice amplifier. It can speak to every machine on this planet." Ethan stared at it. "You're going to use it," he said slowly. She nodded. "But it needs power." She typed, "More than I have." He looked down at the machine, then back at her. "Wait," he said. "How much power are we talking about?" Before she could answer, the door behind them blasted open. A giant figure stepped into the room, taller than any soldier Ethan had seen. Armor black as night, eyes red and glowing. It was no regular soldier. It was the hunter general. Zara turned, her glow dimming slightly. The general spoke with a voice like thunder. "Little voice," he growled. "You were supposed to stay lost." Ethan raised his weapon, but the general moved faster. With one swing, he knocked the gun away and sent Ethan flying across the floor. Zara didn't run. She walked toward the general, fearless, her hands glowing brighter. "You were never meant to return," the general said. "Your family fell. Your name died." Zira stood still and said one word. "Remember." The machines in the room shook, even the walls trembled. The general staggered for a second, his armor buzzing, but he stepped forward, stronger than the rest. "You don't have enough power." He laughed. "You are just a girl." Ethan stood up slowly, blood on his lip. He looked at the amplifier, then back at Zara. "What if I give it power?" he asked. Zara looked at him, her eyes unsure for the first time. "You are human," she typed. "It might break you." Ethan wiped the blood away. "Then let it break me," he said. "I didn't come all this way to watch you fall." He placed his hand on the amplifier core. Pain shot through his body like fire. The machine hummed, then screamed. His bones shook. His heart raced, but he didn't let go. Zara placed her hand on his, completing the circuit. The lights turned white, the machines roared, and for a moment, the world paused. Zara's voice echoed through the entire system. Every drone, every turret, every satellite above the planet heard her. She didn't speak in fear. She spoke in truth. "I am Zara of House Viren," she said. "I am the machine voice, and this world is mine." The general screamed and charged, but it was too late. The machines around him turned on him. His armor cracked, his body thrown back by 100 blasts. The room lit up like a star had exploded, then silence. Ethan collapsed to the floor, gasping, the energy almost tearing him apart. Zara dropped beside him, her glow fading. He looked up at her, smiling weakly. "Did we win?" he asked. She nodded slowly, her hand shaking as she typed, "For now." Smoke still filled the chamber, and broken machines sparked quietly in the corners. Ethan lay on the floor. His hand burned where it touched the amplifier. His heart still beat, slow but strong. Zara knelt beside him, her fingers brushing his forehead. Her eyes no longer glowed, but they held something brighter peace. Above them, the screens flickered, showing signals from across the planet. Drones returned to the sky, satellites blinked to life, and the silent machines of war finally stopped moving. Zara had taken control of them all. Not to destroy, but to silence them. Ethan tried to sit up, but she gently pushed him back down. "You need to rest," she typed. "You gave too much." He gave her a tired smile. "Worth it," he whispered. "You stopped a war." Footsteps echoed from the far end of the chamber. This time not enemies. Soldiers entered different. From the hunters, they wore silver armor and royal emblems across their chests. Zara stood slowly, tall and calm. One of the soldiers knelt before her. "High voice," he said. "We heard your call. All ships have stood down. Your throne is waiting." Zara said nothing, but her silence spoke everything. She looked around the room, at the broken walls, the dead soldiers, the human who had nearly died for her. She turned back to the soldiers and typed a message on the main screen so all could see. "There will be no more throne." Gasps filled the room. Even Ethan blinked in confusion. The soldier bowed his head, unsure, but the council awaits. "Your return," he said. "The Empire needs you." Zara walked back to Ethan, knelt beside him again, and helped him sit up. Then she typed slowly, clearly, "I will return, but not alone." Ethan looked at her, eyes wide. "What do you mean?" She typed again. "You reminded me I am not just a machine voice. You reminded me I am alive." The soldiers remained silent as she reached into her cloak and pulled out a small symbol. She handed it to Ethan. It shimmered with blue light. A crest, old and full of meaning. "Keeper," she typed. "You are the first human to carry it." Ethan stared at the symbol, unsure what to say. "So what happens now?" Zara stood and turned to the others. "We rebuild." Her voice echoed across the chamber, no longer typed, but spoken. "We begin something new." Outside, the sun finally broke through the gray clouds. The dead city glowed with soft golden light. Ships flew in the sky, no longer weapons, but tools of peace. Ethan stood beside her, the symbol still in his hand. He had come to this planet with a single chocolate bar. He had shared it with a girl who had nothing, and now she had given him everything. She was once a lost voice. Now she was a leader. He was once just a tired soldier. Now he was part of something greater. Zara looked at him and spoke one final word. Stay, and he did.